Hello and welcome to LFC Focus. It is time for a little bit of a transfer news special. Who knew I was going to be doing one of these? But of course, it is the January transfer window. It opened a few days ago. And while Jurgen Klopp has spent a lot of his press conferences over the last month or so, essentially assuring all of us that we're probably not going to do much business in January, if at all. And while that has proved to be the case with incoming players, and I think that will be as it stays the whole way through the window, I don't really think we'll be bringing in any players between now and the end of January unless, as Jurgen Klopp himself has said, something changes drastically. So, if Salah and Mane get injured, of course that's going to change. But in terms of incoming players, I can't really see anything happened. Quite a fair amount of stuff has happened today in terms of players going out of the club. Now, the first story, probably the biggest story that's broken today, is the fact that Dominic Solanke has pretty much completed a permanent move away from the club to Bournemouth, and that will give us £19 million, which, if you ask me, is a very, very solid fee for a player like Dom Solanke. I mean, it was never quite made clear how much we actually paid for him in the first place, because obviously it all came about as a result of a tribunal that came about because of the fact that his contract had run down at Chelsea, but because of his age, I think you have to be like under 23 or something, there has to be a fee that's settled by a tribunal. It was all a bit complicated. It was all essentially kept under wraps, but I certainly don't think it was anything more than around £5 million. So it represents a very good return on Liverpool's initial investment, and the rumours are also that there are add-ons in the deal now. They haven't been entirely specified what those add-ons are. Apparently they come up to around £5 million, which is again pretty solid, because I do think Solanke will probably do well at Bournemouth. I think this is a great move for him because he is clearly a talented player. He's shown that in his time at Liverpool. He's not an idiot. He's not bad at football. It just never quite really worked out for him at the club. I think it was just a level too high, because while he played well, he didn't really ever give himself enough time to actually get the goals that I think would have helped him kick on. I think there were a couple of sort of sliding doors moments where he had chances. He almost scores in a few situations. He almost scores some decisive goals in certain situations as well, that if they had gone in, or if refereeing decisions or whatever had gone his way, he could have kicked on and been a really good player for Liverpool, because like I said, the attributes are there. He's a good footballer. He's got good hold-up play. He brings his teammates into play. He has shown outside of the first team and outside of competitive matches that he can be a good finisher as well, and he's also capable of doing things like running the channels and doing a little bit of dirty work to help the team out. So I think he'll do really well for Bournemouth. So I think whatever those add-ons are, they will probably be achieved, provided he doesn't go off a cliff at this point. It's also not been specified whether there's a sell-on clause in there as well, which I think is certainly interesting, because given how good Liverpool are at business at the moment and how shrewd Michael Edwards is with these deals, and I know £19 million plus £5 million in add-ons already feels a little bit too good to be true, but I certainly wouldn't be surprised if there's an extra clause in there that says, if he goes for like 30 million quid to a decent club in the future, then we do get some sort of cut from that, because like I said, he's still a young player. This probably isn't going to be the last move he makes in his career, and provided it doesn't all go horribly wrong for him, it will hopefully be another decent move that he makes between now and when he does eventually hang up his football boots, whenever that might be. So if you ask me, a good move for all parties involved. I don't think it was really going anywhere for him at Liverpool. I think we moved up a few levels too many for him. When he arrived at the club, we were at a level where he might have still been quite a useful player, especially once Daniel Sturridge went out on loan. But now we're competing for the Premier League, we're competing for the Champions League, and we're looking to get to the latter stages of any competition we're involved in. And with the standard of the players, not just in the first 11, but on the subs bench as well, he was never really going to get that many opportunities outside a couple of domestic cup matches. So it's a good move for him. It's a good move for Liverpool. We've got a lot of money for him, and I think it will end up probably being a good move for Bournemouth as well. So the other little bit of transfer news that came out today, again involving a Liverpool player and Bournemouth, Nathaniel Clyne is going to be on the move for now at least. He's expected, again, hasn't quite been finalised. We haven't sort of had a final word from either of the clubs on the situation, but it's all been sort of put out on reputable news outlets like BBC Sport and stuff like that. The kind of people who don't just put out rumours, will only put out stuff when it's absolutely concrete. It's also been heard from people like Paul Joyce and James Pearce on Twitter. So all the people who are in the know, all the people who know about these deals right before they get finalised and confirmed, confirmed by the respective clubs. They've said that this one's going to happen as well. And Clyne is expected to leave the club on loan until the end of the season, again going to Bournemouth. So it does seem that we've established a very good link with Bournemouth here, because of course Solanke isn't even the first player that we've sold to them. We sent Ibe away to Bournemouth as well, Brad Smith as well, and both of those players again we got very, very good deals for, because let's be honest, neither of them have really set the league alight while they've been at Bournemouth. Like I said, hopefully it's similar for Solanke, hopefully similar for Clyne as well, because this move definitely makes sense for him. He needs first team football, and like Solanke, he's just a player who it's sort of not quite worked out for him at Liverpool, and you feel a little bit bad for him, especially because he was such a mainstay in the side at one point. You know, that season where we do get to 4th in 2017 and we qualify for the Champions League, I feel bad for the guy because he was such an integral part of the squad. He played pretty much every single game apart from ones that he missed out due to injury. And then, unfortunately, he never even got to play any sort of part in the Champions League run because of the injuries that he picked up. And like Solanke, we just moved on without him and have become this totally different prospect that Clyne doesn't really have a huge role to play in anymore. So the move definitely makes sense for him. I think Clyne was a little bit more of an important player for Liverpool than Solanke has been so far this season. So a few eyebrows have been raised there, with people sort of wondering what the thinking is behind that and whether or not we're sort of sleepwalking into an unfortunate squad selection situation here. You know, if Trent Alexander-Arnold does get injured, with Joe Gomez also just coming back from injury, and really, you know, we still prefer him being a centre-back rather than a right-back, and the only other player available at right-back being James Milner, who again isn't quite suited to that position, would rather play somewhere else, and is someone you wouldn't necessarily trust there in a huge game like, say, for example, the one at the Allianz Arena against Bayern Munich in a couple of months' time. But apparently Jurgen Klopp has been very, very impressed with the performances of Ki-Jana Huerva, who is a player I've mentioned a couple of times before on this channel. He's come through very, very quickly, having been bought by Liverpool over the summer. And I think at first he came in the under-18s. Then he started playing for the under-19s in the Youth League games. He played the full 90 minutes in the 5-0 demolition of Napoli that led us to actually qualify for the knockout stages of the Youth League. He was then promoted into the under-23s, where he played his first game in the mini derby against Everton under-23s, and the under-23s boss Neil Critchley basically said he was hugely impressed with just how good this player was, considering he's still only 16 years old. And since then he's even been promoted to first team training, some of that due to the fact that we are of course thin on the ground in terms of our centre-back options. With Gomez out and with Matip out, we are of course now only down to Van Dijk and Lovren as the two fit players who can play centre-back for the first team at the moment. So, you know, some of that promotion's been out of luck because of injuries. Some of it has also been, you know, on merit because he's been fantastic so far. So he can also play right back. It sounds like it's a bit of a Gomez situation where maybe his long-term future is at centre-back, but he's got the kind of physical attributes and the ability to read the game from multiple sort of places on the pitch. That means he can also play right back as well, which is a great thing because it obviously enhances his opportunities in terms of getting into the first team. If he can only play centre-back, he's going to struggle to get game time. But if he can play across the defence, apparently he can also play left back as well, then that means he will probably get some opportunities in the first team in the near future. Now, of course, 16 years old, it'd be very, very early to throw him in, especially with that FA Cup game coming up, which I think most of us will have seen as a nailed-on game for Clyne, and it's going to be interesting to see how we handle that now, because do we chuck in Trent Alexander-Arnold, even though he probably does need a rest after the amount of football he has played since Joe Gomez's injury and the fact that he himself has only just come back from a little knock that he picked up in the game against Napoli? Do we maybe play Milner there, who probably needs a little bit of a rest if we're not going to be playing him in his ideal position in midfield? Or do we bring in someone like Ki-Jana Huerva, who maybe isn't quite ready, but you put him in a sink or swim situation where if it doesn't quite go well for him, you can always pull him back a bit and keep him in the under-23s for a little while longer, where I'm sure he will develop and turn into a fantastic player. Let me know your thoughts on both of these transfers in the comments down below. Do you think it's a good move for Solanke? Are you annoyed that it never really worked out for him at Liverpool, or do you accept that that is just a fact of football these days? Same kind of thing with Clyne. Do you think we should have kept him? Are you a little bit worried that we've left a hole in our squad there, or are you excited to see what Liverpool are capable of doing by bringing in players from the youth like Ki-Jana Huerva? Let me know your thoughts on these two transfers in the comments below. Apart from that, don't forget to like this video as always if you enjoyed it. Hit that subscribe button there if you're new around here. Check out some of the other videos that have been out on the channel over the past few days as well. Don't forget to follow at LSU Focus TV on Twitter, and I'll be back soon with the pre-match content for that FA Cup game against Wolves. Until then, bye for now.